Cuomo are meeting at the Oval Office this evening to discuss how they can work together to ramp up testing. And the U.S. government is urging those who receive Social Security and have dependents to submit payment information to the IRS. If they do, they'll receive an extra $500 for each dependent. Those who haven't filed a tax return could miss out if they don't enter their payment information. The Treasury Secretary said if Americans don't fill out the information by Wednesday, they'll have to wait until they file their taxes this year to get the money. And President Trump is asking his administration to prepare bailout funds for the struggling oil industry. Weak demand and increased supply have caused prices to crash in recent days.
President Trump has instructed the Energy and Treasury departments to prepare bailout funds to counter the collapse in U.S. oil prices. The president said on Twitter he will never let the great U.S. oil and gas industry down. The move comes after U.S. crude fell below $0 for the first time ever yesterday, as traders paid people to take it from them because they have nowhere to store it. Global lockdowns have meant surplus oil with storage hubs almost at capacity. In other words, traders have access to the cheapest oil ever, but nowhere to put it. An unprecedented problem. Trump says he'd like to use the opportunity to fill up the country's strategic reserve, about 77 million barrels. But he'll look for Congress's approval first. The crash sent shockwaves through the financial market, all 11 sectors in the S&P 500 falling. The three major U.S. indexes are down between 2.5 to 3.5%. Trump's announcement comes as Saudi Arabia, the world's second largest oil producer after the U.S., announced its desire to help stabilize the market.
And in the rest of our business briefings, U.S. home sales dropped the most they have in 4 years. Air Canada stops flights to and from the United States, and Latin America faces an economic crisis.
In March, U.S. home sales dropped by the most in nearly 4.5 years. Existing home sales tumbled 8.5%, but economists still expect the housing market contributed to gross domestic product in the first quarter because of robust gains at the start of the year. Air Canada is suspending flights between Canada and the U.S. after April 26th. The move matches an extension of border restrictions between the two countries. The carrier plans to resume U.S. service on May 22nd. New York State brought civil charges against opioid maker Mallinckrodt. The charges include insurance fraud for misrepresenting its opioid drugs. The state accused Mallinckrodt of overstating long-term treatment benefits, downplaying addiction risks, and knowingly influencing fraudulent insurance claims. The economies of Latin America and the Caribbean will contract by a record 5.3%. The CCP virus outbreak is unleashing the worst social and economic crisis in decades. It will hit hardest in South America, a region especially dependent on exports to China.
And several U.S. lawmakers introduced bills in recent days to hold the Chinese Communist Party accountable for the CCP virus. The bills would allow U.S. citizens affected by the pandemic to sue the regime and seek compensation.
2 Republican representatives introduced a bill on Friday to hold Beijing accountable for the CCP virus. The bill would allow U.S. citizens and governments to sue the Chinese Communist Party for damages. It essentially strips China of sovereign immunity. The bill would apply to other countries that commit the same act of misleading the World Health Organization. Representatives Ron Wright of Arlington and Chris Smith of New Jersey said the CCP intentionally hid the truth about the virus, which allowed it to spread around the globe. Wright wrote on Twitter, the communist regime spread lies and false propaganda while using the WHO as its mouthpiece. Both representatives serve on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Smith also serves as ranking member of the Congressional Executive Commission on China, following years as its chairman. 2 senators, Martha McSally and Marsha Blackburn, introduced similar legislation called the Stop China Originated Viral Infectious Diseases Act. Senator Blackburn posted on Twitter that the Stop COVID Act will allow Americans to sue Communist China and seek compensation. She said the damage caused by the virus extends beyond the loss of life to impacts on people's livelihoods and the economy. Senator McSally also posted on Twitter about the act, adding the Chinese regime must be held accountable.
And Missouri becomes the first state to sue the Chinese Communist Party. The state's attorney general says the Chinese regime concealed the seriousness of the disease from the rest of the world and should be held accountable.
The Missouri Attorney General is suing the Chinese Communist Party for misrepresenting and concealing the gravity and seriousness of the outbreak in December. It is the first state to take legal action. Eric Schmidt, Missouri's Attorney General, says China's regime should be held responsible for lying to the world about the dangerous and contagious nature of the virus, and also for silencing whistleblowers and doing little to stop the spread of the disease. Schmidt says the outbreak has caused death and economic loss in Missouri and around the world. The regime, he says, should be held legally responsible. The complaint alleges Chinese officials had plenty of evidence of human-to-human transmission in late December, but not until January 20th did the Chinese response team confirm this. By then, serious damage had been done. On December 30th, Dr. Ai Fen shared reports of a contagious SARS-like virus in her department at the Wuhan Central Hospital via WeChat. Dr. Li Wenliang, who later died of the virus, warned his former medical classmates in China to take precautions. Later that day, the Wuhan Health Commission told health workers to stay quiet about the unknown pneumonia or else face consequences. The lawsuit alleges the Chinese regime did little to contain the outbreak, like when Chinese officials allowed a potluck in Wuhan of over 40,000 families, despite neighborhood committee staff asking them to cancel it.
And now some updates from around the world. While the number of casualties in the UK is rising, Oxford scientists are racing to develop a vaccine.
Deaths in the UK are now over 17,000. The health minister announced that vaccine trials on humans will begin there on Thursday. Scientists behind the Oxford project have said they hope to have a vaccine ready by September. They say they're 80% confident it will be successful. In Germany, almost 5,000 have died so far, but almost 100,000 have recovered. Intensive care doctors in a Berlin hospital warned of a potential second wave of infections, which they say could overwhelm health services. Spain's cabinet approved an extension of the country's lockdown to May 9th, but eased some limits on children. Infection went up only 2% in the last 24 hours, fueling optimism the spread may be slowing down at last. And Italy is likely to start easing its lockdown starting May 4th. Prime Minister Conte said he wished he could reopen everything, but added the long-awaited rollback will be cautious and calculated.
And up next, China's export industry suffers as the CCP virus hits economies the world over. We'll hear from local industry workers after the break.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
Welcome back. As the situation worsens in one Chinese province, NTD has obtained internal documents that show its authorities' efforts to cover up the virus. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has the details.
NTD has obtained 3 documents from Heilongjiang, a province at the Russian border. All 3 documents state this document is not for public viewing. 2 of them are from April 13th. The first is a warning letter sent from the leading group for combating the epidemic in Heilongjiang province to its Harbin branch. The letter says Harbin has seen an outbreak of novel coronavirus and cases of community spread are increasing. The letter also says that on March 31st, 39 people in Harbin City tested positive. But according to the Heilongjiang CDC, from March 20th to the 31st, there were no confirmed cases in the province, even though Harbin is its capital city. The second letter from April 13th is a reminder from the group, also sent to its Harbin branch, saying that family gatherings are strictly prohibited. Gatherings in public places near medical institutions and going outside together are also strictly prohibited. The third document is an April 17th letter from the group to all local CDC branches in the province. The document outlines requirements for the branches. One is to make sure that the figures in the daily cases report and the zero cases report are identical to the numbers online. The question is, if the numbers in both the reports and online are accurate, why is it necessary to make sure they are identical? On April 17th, a city in the Inner Mongolia Autonomous Area west of Heilongjiang closed its border to Heilongjiang and blocked all traffic. The city is the first in China to announce a closed border with the province. China is known for censoring free speech, but just how bad is it? A new ranking by Reporters Without Borders ranks China as the fourth worst country in the world. North Korea is the worst. The suppression of virus information has been taken into account this year. Members of the European Parliament are calling for the EU to hold China accountable for the defective medical equipment sent to European countries like Spain and the Netherlands. In the letter obtained by NTD, 10 members of Parliament are calling on the President of the European Commission to place checks on imports of medical gear, particularly those coming from China.
And we get an update from NTD's Juliet Song on how the pandemic has affected China's export industry.
For Chinese workers in the export industry, these are difficult times.
Many factories are giving their employees 1, 2, or 3 months off. Most of the factories.
Mr. Chen works in a furniture factory in Guangdong province, China's export hub. He said orders stopped coming in late March after the virus broke out in other countries, and the entire export industry is facing a grim situation.
In Dongguan City, many factories are closed. They do export as well. We know because we have contact with them. Many factories there have shut down.
Dongguan is known as the world's factory because of its strong manufacturing industry. For the first 2 months this year, China's exports dropped over 15% to $288 billion. Chen's factories hasn't laid anyone off, but he said workers will leave their jobs because fewer orders means smaller salaries. Furniture factory workers used to earn about $500 to $700 a month. Now they make only a little over $300.
You can't survive in a place like Shenzhen with a salary a little over $300. After you buy some meals and other necessities, there won't be much left. If you rent a place, you'll be even poorer.
China's Ministry of Commerce says export industries are resuming production in an orderly fashion. State media is filled with upbeat news of the economy getting back on track. Chen said he doesn't believe any of it.
Who believes it? It's impossible. From January to March, there's not many orders at all. We were basically on a break. There's no way the economy is on track.
Chen added that people don't dare to spend their money even if they have savings.
Chinese people work hard all their lives to earn money. But even if you have, say, $11,000 to $14,000 in savings, it will be gone if you suffer a major illness. There's insurance, but the insurance is useless.
Qian Shan, a business owner who worked in export for many years, told our sister media The Epoch Times China's export industry is doomed because of the pandemic. Qian said it's inevitable that small to medium-sized businesses go bankrupt or halt production on a large scale, and unemployment will quickly rise. He thinks the only way to stimulate the economy is to cut military spending and tax, privatize state-run enterprises, streamline administration, and delegate more power to low-level government. The problem is all of these cross the Communist Party's bottom line. He said all of these measures will shock the party's governance foundation and power. That's why they refuse to do it. The way it works is very simple, and the party knows the way out. But to give up the power and resources on hand is too hard. They simply can't do it. He added that China's economic problems all stem from its political system, and that's what really needs to be addressed. Reporting by Yi Ru and Juliet Song, NTD News.
You're Others have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people. I'm a little freaked out that many people have seen my face. In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
Welcome back. US scientists at MIT have translated the CCP virus's spiked protein structure into music. It's an effort to better understand the pathogen and ultimately to aid research.
This is the novel coronavirus's spiked protein structure set to music, courtesy of scientists at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Researchers there used artificial intelligence to transform a model of the virus into a 1 hour and 50-minute classical composition. Why? Because music offers a more intuitive way for people to understand the complex protein, says MIT professor Marcus Buehler.
You would need many different images and many different magnifications to see with your eyes what your ears can basically pick up with just a couple of seconds of music. These proteins speak a language we don't understand. And if we were to be able to solve that language, we could solve many problems, not only for this disease, but for many other diseases.
The entire composition has been uploaded to SoundCloud for the public to access. Several listeners described the beginning as soothing and beautiful. Buehler said this reflects the ease with which the spiked protein enters the human cell. Later, the music turns dramatic and tumultuous, a reflection of its highly problematic nature.
The virus is actually so effective because it has a very organized way of attacking and progressing. It's sort of a very interesting accident of nature that has come upon us that it's just very efficient in tricking the cell to open up the doors and infecting you and propagating itself.
Scientists at MIT say a possible next step is to construct a musical counterpoint to the coronavirus's melody and rhythm, then use artificial intelligence again to try to find an antibody to match it.
And riots are growing in France. The youth in some areas are coming out to attack police as they apply stay-at-home orders. Our France correspondent David Vives has the story.
Young people let off fireworks and set dumpsters and bushes on fire in the early hours on Tuesday in a suburb near Paris. Another night of unrest as strict lockdown to curb the virus threatens fragile social peace in deprived areas. Riot police patrolled the suburb of Villeneuve-la-Garenne, north of the French capital, where trouble first broke out on Saturday night after a motorcyclist collided with the open door of an unmarked police car during a chase. The male motorcyclist had to go to the hospital for treatment. France's suburbs host a large portion of the nation's immigrants and have long been flashpoints of anger over social and economic grievances. Police union head Michael Touris says it's concerning.
Since the beginning of the lockdown measures, some suburbs on the outskirts of Paris were really on fire.
Touris says many suburbs across France have had riots.
They're throwing rocks at us and shooting modified fireworks, mortar shells, aiming at the head. They also do that to set fire to our cars.
Official data showing Chinese virus-related death indicates that the capital's poor, ethnically diverse outskirts appear to have been hit harder by the coronavirus outbreak than more affluent central Paris. David Vives, NTD News.
And coming up, China's northeast gets hit with a heavy snowstorm like it hasn't seen in decades. Videos posted on social media show what it's like on the ground there. More on that after the break.
How do we get to this point? Back in December, the coronavirus was already spreading in Wuhan, and the Chinese Communist Party was covering it up and punishing the whistleblowers who dared to report the truth. Their actions led to this pandemic, which now has us, in America, stuck in our homes and losing our jobs. To this very day, the Communist Party is still lying, making it more critical than ever for us to get honest reporting about China. The Epoch Times is able to bring you the uncensored truth because we maintain a network of underground sources inside of China, hidden from the censors of the communist government. For instance, our investigative team has been contacting individual funeral homes, hospitals, and they've obtained leaked internal documents which show that China's official numbers are massively underreported by a factor of at least 10. If you're looking for an honest source of news that can keep you informed and safe, check out The Epoch Times. Go to readepoch.com and try your first month for just $1 and get real journalism delivered straight to your doorstep.
Welcome back. Residents in China's northeast have been struggling as the pandemic worsens. Now they're up against a new challenge. An unusually powerful snowstorm has left people's doors jammed shut and cars completely buried.
On Monday and Tuesday, local residents met with heavy snowfall and strong gusts of wind in the province of Heilongjiang. Videos show cars fully covered in snow and people struggling to leave their homes. This woman had to go through her window to step outside. She then waded through snow reaching almost up to her waist. In this man's house, only the window can be seen. The snow was well over 4 feet high in front of his door. This man's car is almost unrecognizable. It'll take more than a little effort to uncover it. On Chinese social media, locals said they haven't seen this type of weather in over 2 decades. They said it could be karma or a punishment for bad things people have done.
And in Connecticut, 3 police officers have managed to capture a runaway pig. But before they did, they had to chase it for over an hour.
Police officers in Stamford, Connecticut spent an unexpectedly long time in catching this one pig. Outnumbered 3-1, the pig got the better of these police officers multiple times during the 45-minute-long chase. Bodycam footage provided by the Stamford Police Department shows the pig quickly maneuvering past the officers. At one point, the pig used the environment to its advantage by darting between 2 trees. It also scurried between an officer's legs before eventually getting trapped in a garbage can. Police said the swine was sent to animal control while they tried to locate its owner.
That's all for today's news. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Paul Graney.